I remember watching my son learn to walk, and I was like, buddy, I know exactly what you're going through right now when I'm seeing him, struggle and fall and stuff. And I'm thinking, I got it, buddy. I know it, man. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, it was a struggle. And there's still times today, people wouldn't know it probably by watching, but I have sometimes bad days, and I got to think more about what I'm doing, and turning corners, walking a certain way. There's a lot more thought goes into it than I show in my body.
This is Recovery After Stroke with Bill Gassiamis, helping you go from where you are to where you'd rather be.
Jason, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. What's interesting is how willing people are from wherever in the world that I find them and get in touch with them to be on the podcast and share their story. I really appreciate that they do that, because it's not possible otherwise, this podcast, without people sharing their story. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
All right. So February 1st, 2015 was just like any other regular day, except it was Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if you're probably more a football, like soccer fan, than NFL.
I am, but I know what Super Bowl is. Let me tell you, they don't leave us forget about it here. The pubs go crazy. They fill the rooms. It's madness. It really is.
Yeah, so I'm a huge football fan, and I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. Sorry, anyone out there who's against that, but yeah, that's my team of choice. But on that particular day, it was 2015. It was New England against Seattle, and Russell Wilson had just got intercepted at the 1 yard line by Malcolm Butler, and that was the end of the game. They blew it. Seattle had a chance to win it, but of course New England won it like they usually do. And right after the game, my wife said to me, she goes, can you come up to the kitchen? I was like, yeah, sure. And I was shocked. She showed me a positive pregnancy test. And we had tried for over 4 years, no success, and we're pretty much ready to throw in the towel on that. And so it was extremely exciting, but at the same time, it was almost like I wasn't 100% convinced. So I said to her, I go, are you sure? And she said, I did it twice. And so I said, okay, well, I said, this is amazing. Was so stoked. And then she said, I'll call tomorrow and book a blood test to go to my doctor and confirm it 100%. So that was exciting. Then the next day, February 2nd, which is my father's birthday, I left for work that day, normal day. I remember driving to work like it was yesterday, because I was actually listening to the song by Creed, With Arms Wide Open, came on, and it's all about having a kid, and I was thinking all about it, like, oh my God, I'm going to be a dad, bringing a child into this world. And I was super excited about it. Like, I got to teach this child everything and lead them down the right path, and hopefully make all the right decisions. I made a few wrong ones, so I could teach them not to make those ones. So anyway, I pick up my buddy Kurt, who worked with me at the time, and we carried on our way. And then all of a sudden, I said to him, I go, buddy, I'm super tired. I go, do you want to just pull over into a parking lot and have a quick nap?
If you've had a stroke and are in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind, like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously because you've never had a stroke before, you probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, They'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
And I run a fitness club, and I'm fortunate to have really good owners that I work for. And if I'm 15 minutes late, half hour late, they don't really care. They don't really question me. We have that kind of relationship. And he was like, "No, Jay." He's like, we'll stop and we'll grab a coffee, and you'll wake up. He's like, "Come on, man." So I was thinking like, "Yeah, you're right, man. Come on, let's go, whatever." We stopped. We quickly went into a video game store where they sell like pool tables and pinball machines and stuff, because my father, like I said, it was his birthday, and he used to be a big pinball lover. So I wanted to see how much these things are. Well, I mean, we walked out pretty fast because they were way out of my budget standpoint. But we carried on to work, got to work, had the coffee, felt good, went about my day, had a good day, got in the car, drove home, dropped him off, and then I called my dad because I didn't call him, and we're really, really close. So called him, wished him a happy birthday, apologized that I had taken so long to call him. He was cool with it. We talked for about another, I'd say, half hour on my drive. And then I got home and I did what was my usual routine. I grabbed my dog, Duke. I got a yellow lab, and took him outside for him to do his business. And then I came in, and I was going to go into the basement and do a workout because I have gym equipment downstairs. And I realized, I was like, you know what, I got to use the washroom first. So I was walking through the kitchen to head to the washroom, and my wife asked me a question like, "How was your day?" or something. And I answered her, and she said, "Why are you slurring?" And you've had a stroke. I don't know how yours was, but I didn't hear myself slurring. And it made me like a little bit almost argumentative. I was just like, it got my back up. I was like, "Slurring? What are you talking about, hon?" I'm like, "I just had a long day." I said, "I got to use the washroom because if I don't do this now, if I don't go work out now, I'm not going to work out, and I don't want to miss my workout." She was like, "All right, whatever." So didn't think anything about it. And then I went to the washroom, and then I went to pull my pants up, and I couldn't use my left hand. And it was so surreal. I was telling it to do something, and it wouldn't listen to me. It was like we weren't connected. And I came out of the washroom and I said, "Honey, I think something's wrong." She said, "What do you mean what's wrong?" Like, "Something's wrong." I said, "I can't really use my left hand." And she's a smart girl. She's in the science field. And she said, "Sit down for a second." I sat down, and she said, "Smile." I smiled. And of course, when I smiled, the left side of my face didn't move. And she said, "Are you doing that on purpose?" And when she said that, that's when my heart, oh yeah, that's when my heart really started to pound, because I knew that meant, like, for her to be concerned, I need to be concerned, because I'm usually the one who's concerned, and she's like, "Oh, it's all good, don't worry." So we live about 10 minutes down the road from a hospital. So we jumped in the car. I now know, should have called 911, no doubt about it, with the whole fast. So got in the car, headed down to the hospital. And I remember sitting in a waiting room, and there was about 4 people in the waiting room. And I just was looking over at them, and I was like kind of in a daze. And all I remember thinking was, "I'm going before all of you." And then I said to my wife, I said, "You need to go. I think you should go let them know that, something's really wrong here, because I'm a little bit nervous." So she went and she told the girl at the triage that, "I think my husband's having a stroke." So they brought me up there, and they took my blood pressure, and the woman said, "No, I don't think he's having a stroke. His blood pressure is really good." So I had that little moment of relief. I was like, I'm good, thank God. And then she goes, "But we'll take a CT scan just to make sure." And so as they were going to take the CT scan, I gave my wife my phone, and I said, "You need to call Steve, who is my boss." And I go, "You need to call Doug, who is one of the owners of the gym, and call my dad if anything goes wrong." So I had the CAT scan, and next thing I know, this guy's looking over me and he says, "Have you ever been on an ambulance ride before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Okay, well, you're going to now." He goes, "You're having a stroke right now. You got bleeding going on in your brain, and we can't help you here. We're going to have to send you down to Toronto Western where they're better capable to help you." And wow, like,
Wow.
I don't even know what else to say. It
Yeah,
was just,
that's very wow, man. So, you know, when you said you were tired, you're in the car with your buddy and you're feeling tired and you needed to have a sleep. Was that something that you normally do, or was that something that you think now was related to what was about to happen or what was happening?
yeah, now I think that it was probably, my guess, I'm no doctor, but was maybe that I had like a real slow bleed going on at that point.
Hmm.
And then, as the day went on, more and more and more damage took place. I'm so grateful that first of all, that I drove home safely,
Yeah.
and that I got home before, SHIT hit the fan.
Yeah. So you're like me, your
Am I
wife,
allowed to? Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to
shit.
spell that?
You're allowed to say shit.
Oh, oops, oops. Oh yeah, we can edit this.
We're stroke survivors, man. We're allowed to say shit, whatever.
Exactly. I
Um,
love that.
you know, how you had the conversation with your wife about I'm not slurring, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Well, I had the conversation with my wife because she noticed me walking differently, and I said, "I'm not walking differently. Leave me alone. I've got work to do."
Exactly.
And that was about 4 days after I noticed the symptoms. So I ignored it for 4 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you seem like you ignored it for about three, maybe you were sort of starting to notice things maybe 3 days before the actual hospital visit.
No, I like only started noticing like the day before or the
Uh,
day of, the morning of.
right, okay. It's so strange. Everyone I speak to has a completely different version, a completely different story of how they experienced their stroke and what they noticed. So you're in hospital now, and your wife, is she still at hospital with you?
Oh yeah, she stayed there the whole time. She's a rock star, and she called. She called my dad, told my dad, and at the time my family lived in Northern Ontario in Sault Ste. Marie. That's where I'm born and raised, and so she calls my dad, and I guess she says, "Jason's having a stroke." What? What are you talking about? Jason's having a stroke. I just talked to him. I just got off the phone with him like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I'm at the hospital with him right now." And yeah, so him and my mom, he had to wake my mom up. She was gone to bed, and then they had to, I guess they would paced all night until morning came when they could get on a plane and fly over.
Yeah. So, the other thing that's interesting about you and me is that when I was in hospital and I realized that it was pretty serious because I couldn't feel my entire left side by the time I got there, I also knew that I was going through into triage and into a bed way before everyone else. And that was exciting for some reason
Oh.
because I didn't have to wait 45 minutes. What's with that, man? What is it with that?
in
That's
a
so crazy.
in a sick way.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a sick way.
And I talk about it when I do
Well,
presentations. I do a lot of presentations on the topic and my experience. And one of the things I specifically mentioned is that they gave me the red carpet treatment when I got to hospital, and I was straight through, and I didn't have to wait. It's such a funny thing that you said that.
it's so true.
um, so what happened after you admitted to hospital? So they've found there's a bleed on the brain, and now what's the process? How long does it take for them to treat you?
Yeah. So this is pretty cool. So they basically informed me that it was caused by an AVM. They informed me and my wife. I'm obviously you know what that is, but for anyone out there that doesn't, it's arteriovenous malformation, which is a cluster of blood vessels. It's a birth defect, and I never knew it. I was a ticking time bomb from the day I was born, and boom, that
Yeah.
night it was time to erupt.
Yeah. How old were you?
So the I was 36 at the time. I'm
Yeah.
40 now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I was
And
37. Yeah.
and It's a lot of people around that age, I find too. It's
Yeah,
kind of
crazy.
strange. Was yours an, was yours a rupture as well?
Yeah, and a ruptured AVM, 37.
Oh, same thing. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah. So
craziness.
tell me about the hospital stay.
So I don't know about you, but they put me on some twilight drug, and I never did drugs in my life, but man, this stuff was neat. I was I remember sitting there and them telling me, like, I'm in this room, I guess surgery room or whatever, and there's like 7 doctors all to me, and I'm like, wow, right? And I still had my sense of humor. I wasn't afraid. I was calling them the dream team, and so then they told me, we're gonna go make an incision in your groin, and we're gonna go up from your groin to your brain. And I said, excuse me? I go, there's a passageway from the groin to the brain? And they said, yeah, there is. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. I'm like, that's crazy. So I literally remember watching them make the incision in my groin, and I couldn't care less. Like, it was like, oh, wow, like, that's neat. Like, there was no part of me that was like, that felt pain or was like, oh my God, I'm scared, or it was weird. And so then it seemed to me like it was maybe 5 minutes. My wife tells me it was more like 4 hours, and I guess 4 or 5 hours. And I think what happened was that they tried to use a glue to clot I guess the AVM, and it didn't work. And they caused more bleeding when they did that. So they went out and told my wife that the procedure didn't work, and they had to get her to sign off on papers to proceed with the craniotomy. And I remember them saying to me, literally, they just said, Jason, the procedure didn't work. And I said, okay, you need to cut my head open now? And they said yes. And I said, okay. I said, but I have to tell you something first. And now knowing this now, I would take this back, because like, it's putting a lot of pressure on people so that already have pressure on them. So all these doctors, and I said, guys, other than my wife, you guys are the only people that are going to know what I'm about to tell you. I found out yesterday that I'm going to be a father. And oh yeah. And we've tried for a long time for this. My child is going to need a dad. So you need to save my life right now. You guys are the dream team. I know you can do it. Save my life, please. And they laughed, and they said, we're going to do everything we can, Jason. And then, then it was like 3, 2, 1. Good night.
Wow. So within a couple of hours of the bleed, you are in surgery immediately, almost immediately.
Something like that. My wife would know the exact timeline, but yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. Wow. So you woke up after surgery with a hole in your head, some hair missing. What happened after that? What was the recovery like?
Okay, so I remember it was so surreal to me. I don't know who is religious out there and who isn't, and I wasn't very much for religion myself, but I woke up and I couldn't talk. I looked and I saw my wife, and I smiled and gave her a thumbs up, and I pointed at her stomach, so she knew that I knew what was going on. So I mean, that was a real good relieving sign for her. And then I went like this. Like, give me something to write on, and they gave me a clipboard, and I wrote, "How did procedure go?" And they said procedure went well. And then I wrote, "I want my wife to give me a bath," which is hilarious because I don't know where that came from. And like, I mean, I got all these wires and tubes and everything, and here I wanted to go have a bath. And but I think the key moment for me came about 3 or 4 days later, where I was finally left alone at night, because my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother-in-law, like all my family has just been an amazing support system for me. So I had people there all the time. So if I did get afraid or anything, they were there to reassure me. But the strange thing is I didn't get afraid. And I'm not the type of person, or I wasn't the type of person before the stroke to not get afraid. I would have been the guy that was like, this isn't fair. Why did this happen to me? I can't believe I just had a stroke. But I wasn't at all. And I found that strange. And I had this really strong tie to angels at the time. Like, I was downloading songs on my phone and I just wanted songs about angels. It was like I just knew there was some sort of connection. I don't remember, like, I'm not going to say I had any, near-death experience or anything like that, but I just know that I wanted to listen to songs about angels, and that was that. Mm. And then, so the first night when I had no one there with me, and I realized what my prognosis was, and they said to me, we believe, Jason, that you'll walk again someday in some capacity, but we're not optimistic that you will regain much, if any, of your use of your left arm and hand.
Why do they say that?
Why
did they even say that? Why did they even have the idea that they should say that? I don't get it. Whatever. Anyway.
I know. And they're amazing doctors. Yeah. I love them to death, but I mean, I think they just didn't want to give me false hope, but in the same token, I mean, it makes it rough for people. But
yeah.
So I remember going to bed, trying to go to bed that night, and I was laying there and I was completely paralyzed from head to toe, left side, and I was just thinking, like, what's my life going to be like? Am I going to be a dad where I'm in a wheelchair and they got to sit the baby on me and they got to, watch that I don't drop the baby? Like, am I going to have any form of independence? Like, what is my life going to be like? And then I decided the only thing that I could do was to say a prayer. And I remember this prayer like it was yesterday. I say it when I do presentations in churches. And I said, Dear Lord, I'm sorry that I have abandoned you. I'm sorry that I haven't reached out to you and thanked you. I'm sorry that I haven't asked for your help, but I need your help now. I need you to be my teammate, Lord. I promise you that I will not lay in a bed and be a hypocrite and just pray for help. I promise that I will work harder than I ever had for anything in my life, but I want to be a father to my child. I want to be the type of father that can run after his kid, that can pick up his kid. That's what I want, Lord. Please be my teammate. I promise if you help me, if you touch me with your healing hands, that I will brag about what you've done for me for the rest of my life. And I started healing, and I will never stop bragging about what has been done for me spiritually.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. Spiritual side of people really does come out after stroke. I've noticed with a lot of people. It certainly came out with me, and not in that way that it did for you, differently for me, but definitely did come out. You connect with something that you haven't connected with before in a way that you haven't done before, and it's kind of what drives you, motivates you, and whether you call it Lord, God, or something else, there's definitely an awakening.
100%.
Yeah, and I think it's with you, like, that whole promise is not only a promise to your Lord, but it's also a promise to you, by the sound of things, that you're going to do whatever it takes to get on the path to recovery and then be the best that you can be, and turn up for your son or your daughter, whoever's on the way, and your wife, and do all the things that you need to do. And it's kind of crazy, but it's a really good side effect of stroke, isn't it?
It really is. It totally makes you look at things differently. Life in general. I think I was, always someone who was looking for tomorrow, always reaching and stretching for tomorrow instead of, enjoying today and being thankful for the things that I have in my life. And yeah, I think I've also become a lot more spiritual in the universe sense of things. I never thought about the universe and universal power and all of that stuff. And one thing that's pretty interesting is when I had my CAT scan when I was having the stroke, it was taken February 2nd at 2200 hours and 22 minutes. It's time stamped. And I never thought of that at the time at all. And then I was explaining that to someone who is like a very spiritual type person. And she said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "What do you mean? No." And she said, "Well, those are angel numbers." And I was like, whoa. And she's like, look them up. And so I started looking it up, and sure enough, and it's all like twos are very powerful angel numbers. 22 is a very powerful number. 222 and quadruple two is the vibration is even higher. And so thinking about it now, it was February 2nd, which is 2200 hours, 22 minutes. So it's pretty crazy. So I just recently actually got a tattoo on my back, 2222, and I got an angel halo and some rays coming down on the twos. So it's
That's
pretty
cool, man.
means a lot.
That is very cool. Yeah, that's cool. Why shouldn't it mean a lot? That whatever it means to you, that's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else, but as long as it's significant to you, that's great.
Absolutely.
Jason, you were into business. You have a business, or you're running a business.
Yeah.
The day before the stroke, you're running your business, and the day after stroke, you're in hospital. So how does that work now? What happens with work, and how do you get in touch with the people there to let them know that you can't turn up?
I was very lucky. Again, my support system, amazing. My right-hand man, Steve, we work really well together, and everyone just totally picked up the pieces. From the ownership group down to my team, everyone picked up the pieces for me. And for 3 months, I was out of work, and I came back to work, and they had done such a great job. I was so proud of everyone.
Yeah. So what were you doing for 3 months? You were in rehab recovering, or were you at home? What were you doing then?
Yeah, so I spent 2 months away from home. The first 3 weeks was at Toronto Western Hospital, where that's where I had the surgery. And then I went. They sent me to St. John's Rehab, and I was there for 4 or 5 weeks. 5 weeks. And then I went home around beginning of April, and I took off until May 1st. And I said that was just going to be time for me. And what I did was I did exercising at home, anything that I could do, different occupational therapy exercises, physiotherapy type things. And I read a lot. I did a lot of reading, which is something that I never really did much before the stroke, and something that I found to be really peaceful for me.
So what did you have to learn how to reuse again? Did you have to learn how to walk again? Your arm? What was that like?
Oh yeah. Completely everything from the left side. Those of you that follow me on Instagram can see the kind of workouts that I go through, what I do, and if you go way back in the profile, you can see the initial stages of learning to walk again. And I'm sure Bill, that it's definitely not an easy task, and to have to think about everything you do. It's one of those things, walking, that we take for granted. I remember watching my son learn to walk, and I was like, buddy, I know exactly what you're going through right now when I'm seeing him, struggle and fall and stuff. And I'm thinking, I got it, buddy. I know it, man. Keep going, keep going. Yeah, it was a struggle. And there's still times today, people wouldn't know it probably by watching, but I have sometimes bad days, and I got to think more about what I'm doing, and turning corners, walking a certain way. There's a lot more thought goes into it than I show in my body. in the way I operate every day.
Yeah. And what about your arm? I saw that you were able to move it quite well, like I can. But is there some leftover challenges with that as well?
Yeah, I would say there definitely is. I got some shoulder issues at the back here that we're working on, where it wants to collapse. So if I'm doing overhead lifting, it wants to collapse in. So we've been doing a lot of strengthening exercises there, and I also do acupuncture, and I work with a chiropractor, and I'm so blessed to have all the people around me, the support system with regards to my job, and everybody wants to help me, which is amazing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll also very fine motor skills with the left hand are still a challenge. My plan with that though is when I feel I am where I want to be with everything else, which is, fairly close, maybe it's 6 months to a year away, then I'm going to focus crazy amounts of attention on my hand. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good now,
Mm-hmm.
all things considering. I can catch and throw balls with it. I show a lot of that stuff on my Instagram. I can do chin ups and all that kind of stuff. My grip's really good. Sensation, I would say, is the worst thing. How's your sensation, Bill?
Yeah, sensation is a big issue. It's numb and weirdly
I
painful,
know exactly what you're thinking.
burning, and cold all at the same time.
Yeah, I got past the cold thing for the most part. I was lucky. I had that for a while,
Yeah.
but that has improved a lot. But what I have is it's numb, but as much as I have like very poor sensation, it's hypersensitive at the
That's
same
right.
time,
Yeah, same.
right? So when I'm trying to hold dumbbells or something, the dumbbell in the left hand feels like it's really gripping at my skin versus obviously the right. Just so I think that's the last thing that we're going to get back if God willing we do.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to be the thing that causes a little bit more challenges for me as well. And the numbness of the foot causes the entire left side to tense up, and because it wants to help me stay upright, and it thinks that because there's no signals going back to the brain thinks that the foot isn't touching the ground properly, so it tenses all the muscles to give me stability and to make sure that I don't fall. And then that causes a whole bunch of muscle issues and tightness, and then that causes more pain. So I get massaged regularly to relieve the muscles and to stretch them out and to give them a little bit of relief from all the tension.
Yeah.
And then that sensation thing that you mentioned, which is hypersensitive as well as numb, it's hypersensitive. So when my wife wants to be gentle and touch me on the hand, especially when I'm driving, because in Australia we drive on the other side than they do in America. So she might reach over with her right hand and touch me on the left hand just to be, loving, and it'll be like, whoa, don't touch me, in my hand.
Oh yeah.
That hurt, don't do it. And
When
she
you
forgets.
when you don't know, eh? It's when you don't know that she's going to touch you, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I tell her, if you're going to do that, be rough about it. Just touch it rough. I don't mind if you touch it rough, but don't touch it soft or gently. I can't deal with it unless we're swapped over and she's the driver and I'm the passenger. And at that time, she's driving. She's not interested in touching my hand. So
One thing I noticed, Bill, like that's amazing though that you can right away bang remember where you were. I have trouble with that a lot.
yeah, that comes back. I'm really good in the morning at my house right now in Australia. It's the morning, so around 9:30 a.m. So at night in the evenings when I do podcasts, sometimes I struggle to get words out and remember remember like where I was or what I had to say or the name of a person, and you see it
Yeah.
come up in some of my podcasts where I'm struggling and I'm stopping and I'm stuttering. So it just depends on where I am on the day. I'm 7 years post-stroke, so it's getting a lot better and things are recovering a lot more as I do more and more to be careful that I'm fueling my body and my brain in the right way, as I'm being more uh, careful of how I'm going about doing things day to day and doing less and not tiring myself out and not putting myself in a situation where I've done too much and I'm exhausted. It gets better. But sometimes when I've done too much, or when I haven't eaten well, or when I haven't slept well the night before, then uh, memory is a problem. I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, before we were interrupted, I wanted to ask how you are now looking back, going back to the stroke. How do you deal with it all? Are you feeling a little bit traumatized by it? Has there been any other troubles emotionally and mentally that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing emotionally would be, I think I lose my temper faster than I did before.
Mm,
I gotta, I gotta talk to like I gotta remind myself always, like if I start getting mad, like relax, like before you react, think about what's really going on, and don't just react. Especially in work, obviously, I'm managing people. I can't be snapping. So
yeah.
so that would be one thing. But trauma, a little bit, if I really think back on it, but I don't know, not too bad with that. My biggest fear, I think, is always with my son, right? Like if my son says my head hurts, I'm like, and my wife's like, relax, relax, he's fine. And I spoke to the surgeon who did my surgery, and just I guess 2 years ago or something, they found out that AVMs aren't hereditary, which was like a huge relief to
Mm,
me, because I was I was worried about that constantly,
mm,
thinking, oh my God, what if he has one? What if he has a stroke? And I know I can't think that way, so I try not to think that way. And I don't know about you, even though they told me my AVM's removed and I'm no longer at risk, it's still sometimes, I think about it, like get a little bit of numbness. I think, am I okay?
mm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too as well. It plays on your mind. What am I noticing? What am I feeling? 7 years down the track, you're not at that stage anymore, I think. For me, because like you, the AVM has been removed and it's no chance of it bleeding again, then what I'm feeling normally when I'm having a weird day of sensations or something's hurting that I haven't noticed before is I'm just having a response to some other form of uh, tiredness that's occurred that I haven't experienced yet. That's all it is. So some days, I find the left side, you feel the spasming and the sensations or the twitching in the muscles. So it's all different, but I'm no longer worried about, oh, well, that could be another issue or another challenge. My wife goes there a little bit, though. She has a bit of a challenge with that. So when I do something that's strange, or a pull a face that she saw perhaps 5 or 6 years ago that she didn't like the look of, she'll say something like, "What are you doing? What's wrong?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, nothing's wrong. I don't know, what am I doing?" And she'll say, "You did that face. So which face was that? The one I don't like. Stop doing that." "Oh, okay, I'll stop doing it. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just having a moment. I'll be right. Whatever." So she's a little bit
Yeah.
uh, not hyper aware anymore, but she's a little bit more curious about what does that mean now, or what does that look like, or what is that about. So what about your wife? How's she coping with it all?
She's awesome. She's really, really good with stuff like that. She's huge support. I mean, I'm so lucky. So lucky, man.
Yeah, did she have to be your carer at some point? Did she also have to take time away from work to be with you while you were away from work?
She No, she didn't. No, she was she would work, and And she might have took a week or two. I can't recall.
Yeah, okay.
I know that she would go to work and then she'd come see me at rehab hospital right after. And I didn't like a lot of the hospital food, so she'd go home and make food too, and then bring it the next day, and like just go, 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 go.
Yeah. And a
Yeah.
little while later, she started to grow a belly.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
So that,
We actually went on the 2 year anniversary. We went to Toronto Western to see Dr. Radonovich, the guy who did the surgery. And I wanted to go and visit him. And she's like, well, you can't just go visit the surgeon. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try. And she goes, it doesn't work that way. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. So we go into the AVM clinic there. And I said, hi, can I talk to Dr. Radonovich? And the nurse goes, do you have an appointment with him? And I said, no, I don't. But he saved my life a couple of years ago, and I'd like to shake his hand if he's here. And she goes, he's on lunch right now, but he'll be back in probably 45 minutes. He'd love to shake your hand. Sorry, I'm just going to move. The sun has moved over now. It's following me.
yeah, it sure is.
So anyway, so then I said, okay, hun, well, why don't we go down to the food court? We'll go eat, and we'll come up in 45 minutes. And we had our son with us too. So we went down there, and we got our food. We went and sat down, and then she said, I forgot to get a knife. And I said, okay, I'll go get you one. So I went, I got her a knife. I brought it back. I come to the table, and then she goes, I think that's him over there. And I look over like, what? And like, this is like maybe like 4 or 5 tables over. And I go, no, I don't think so. That doesn't look like him. And she goes, yes, it does. He has a beard now. like she was like, duh, it's surely him.
Yeah.
He just has a beard. So I was like, okay. And she's like, so I stand up, and she goes, what are you doing? And I go, I'm going to talk to him. She goes, he's eating with other people. Like leave him alone. I'm like, no, she knows I don't work that way. So I walk right up to the table, and I go, Dr. Radonovich. And he just looks up at me, and I go, hi, it's Jason Gadet. And I was just about to say, you did my surgery. And he said, you don't have to tell me. I know exactly AVM. And he started explaining all of it. And I'm like, look, I said, I'm sorry to, bother you during your lunch, but I'm here right now. I came here to see you and see the nurses and see all of the people that treated me so well when I was here. But I want you to meet my son. And so I brought my son over, and I said, Doc, because of you, this little boy has a father, and we're best friends. Sorry, I'm gonna get emotional.
Yeah, that's all right, man.
That's the most touching thing for me is like my son is my world. Like I just, oh man. And you have kids?
Yeah, I have two
Do you
boys.
have kids, Bill?
2 boys, yeah.
Oh. Did you have kids before the stroke?
Yeah, so they were teenagers when I had the stroke. At 37, my sons were 16 and 12.
Oh wow, got it taken care of early, eh, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't mucking around. So they were teenagers. They were doing it a little tough during that time. But yeah, every time I thought about the children and saw them, it was emotional. And it's true what you say, man. The doctors, they did an amazing job on me as well. And they saved my life. And they brought to end the trauma and all the drama, because my experience happened over 3 years. They brought an end to the trauma and the drama, and that was the really good thing about surgery. It finally put everything to an end, and I could get on with healing myself after surgery and then recovering. And that was the best part about it, because I could tell the children that, okay, it's not going to happen again. It has bled 3 times, but that's it. It's not going to happen again. So we're good to go from here on,
So you had like small bleeds from it, and what did they do during that?
Yeah,
when that was happening?
So I had the first bleed in February 2012, and it was let's just see what happens. These things bleed sometimes and then they stop. 6 weeks later, it bled again, and this time it was quite a large bleed, and it caused quite a lot of neurological symptoms. So memory loss and speech issues and fatigue, and I couldn't work, I couldn't drive, all sorts of issues. And then it got better, and again they didn't operate. They left it because they thought, well, look, we've been there. In these situations, they very rarely bleed twice, so we don't think it's going to bleed again. So we'll let it heal, and we'll see what happens, and just monitor everything. So they did that, and then the blood clot that was in my head started to go away. Everything came back. I started to feel a lot better. And then almost 3 years after the first bleed, it bled again. And then my surgeon, Professor Kate Drummond, said, you're at risk of it bleeding another time, and now the odds are stacked against you. If it bleeds again, we don't know what's going to happen, and we would rather not do that, and now we need to operate. So my AVM was in a part of the brain that was very difficult to get to. It was near the cerebellum. It was about 4 centimeters in from the ear on the right side.
Ooh.
So they wanted to avoid surgery if possible, but they got to that point where then they said, we can't avoid surgery, we have to go in. And that was a relief for me. When it happened, it was great because I didn't really mind what I was going to have to heal from or wake up with or any of that stuff. I just wanted it to be over so that I didn't have to keep traumatizing everybody all the time, family, friends, mum, dad, the kids. So we got to that point where
For sure.
we put an end to it, and that was a really huge relief,
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Totally different. I don't know I think that would be more scary. I think I would rather have it just go like me, like boom, you're in big trouble, and have it done, because it's the knowing that you have a ticking time bomb in your head that would be, I think, the worst part.
Yeah.
I know a little girl who her mom was a member of the gym, and this girl's competitive dancer, just a sweet girl, and the mom's a sweet woman, and she started having partial seizures in high school, and they found out that she had an AVM, and so they needed to do surgery on it. And I don't know where it was, but it was a difficult spot as well. And she was afraid that she'd never be able to dance again or anything. And they did the surgery, and she never had no symptoms. Like they got it out, and she went back to competitive dancing right away, like pretty much.
Yeah, so that's an
She's
amazing
very
story.
lucky, very lucky girl.
Brilliant story, see?
Very lucky.
We've come so far in what's possible, and we're so blessed that we live at a time where they can go in and fix us up. And compared to what we would have been if this surgery wasn't available, you'll live with the numbness and the weird sensation and the lazy leg, or, the inability to do 24 hours of work. You'll live with all of that now, knowing that we've come so far. I figured that if I was 40 years ago or maybe 50 years ago, I figured that I'd likely not be here, back then.
Oh yeah, you would have been done. We would have been done for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So
let me ask you something.
Go.
Have you had any seizures since your surgery?
I haven't had any seizures since my surgery, but they suspected that the second bleed that I had 6 weeks after the first one was more of a seizure than anything that bled. It was a seizure that caused a bleed. So nothing ongoing. I'm very lucky like that. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, about 6 months after, around that, I was at the gym. I had just finished my workout, went and I was cooling down on the treadmill, and I felt like a cramp in my face, and I got my head got pinned in a position like this. I was staring up at the roof of the gym, and I was in a trance, and I had no idea what was going on. And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, am I having a stroke again right now?" And part of me was embarrassed and was thinking, "Okay, this is going to go away. I don't want anyone to see this." And then the other part of me was thinking, "Oh my God, I need someone to see this right away and help me." And just staring at the ceiling, looking at the grains in the wood, and totally frozen. I was able to stop the treadmill, and then I was just standing there. But and then all of a sudden, I heard someone go, "Jason, are you okay?" And I wanted to say, "Yeah, I'm fine," but I couldn't talk.
Wow.
And so he and another guy came, got their arms around me, and started walking me to the lobby. And with their assistance, I walked, and they sat me down in a chair, and I heard someone in the background, "Call 911, call 911," and it was so terrible. And then all of a sudden, just like that, boom, like I grabbed my water bottle. I was like, "Oh, that was weird." I just snapped out of it and
Has it happened
didn't
again?
know what. So then what happened? So the ambulance came, they took me down, and they took my driver's license away, all that, and they put me on Dilantin anti-seizure med, and so they put me on 300 milligrams of that, and I was good. I had two very small ones after that, which was it's just really weird. I just all of a sudden my mouth would like fill up with saliva, and I'd be in a trance. And I don't know how long it is. If it's a minute, 2 minutes, I don't know how long it is. But then it's just like a snap of a finger, and I'm like nothing happened. And so then from there, they upped the prescription that I'm on. They upped the milligrams, and touch wood, I've been fine for quite a while now.
Okay, so you're still
Yeah.
on anti-epileptic or anti-seizure medication.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I probably will have to be for the rest of my life, or I want to take CBD and hope that can do the same thing.
Yeah.
However, they told me that unless I was willing to not drive for 6 months and try it and go seizure free for 6 months, then I can't do that. So, I mean, driving is too important for me right now. I work over an hour away from home. So yeah, it's not an option right now.
Yeah.
But
that's something to work towards, maybe.
Nothing. Yeah. That's nothing big, because the good thing for me, I haven't had really any side effects from the medication. They tell you all the things that you're supposed to have, and one of the main ones is lack of coordination. And you can see, luckily, from my Instagram videos, that I don't have that. I mean, I have it a bit, but based on what I've gone through, I don't think it's from the medication.
I reckon that with you is you spent so much time of your life in the gym working on things like coordination without thinking about it. You're doing that anyway. One of the biggest, most powerful things to heal a brain is a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And what that does is that creates a cascade of signals for the brain to create new neurons and to recover and to heal and to replace old ones. And that comes from exercise. So
oh wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, so exercise is one of the most important things that you can do when you're healing from a brain injury. And because you are so, I'll call it fit, for lack of a better word, prior to your brain injury, you're always in the gym, you're always working out, you're always lifting weight. All that stuff was constantly healing and repairing and making your brain really amazing before it became unwell. And then your instinct to go back to the gym because that's what you love and that's what you do for a living help to support your brain to heal. One of the most supportive things that you can do is go into the gym and lift weights, even if you're not lifting, super heavy weights. Just lift weights so that you're creating a little bit of resistance. And you seem to be doing that more than most people. So I know it's not scientific of me to get to that place, but I feel like maybe what you're doing is helping the coordination even though you're on medication. So anyone listening who's on anti-epileptic medication and is not exercising, or anyone that's listening who's just recovering from a brain injury and is not exercising, definitely find out how much exercise you can do and do that much, even if it's 10 minutes a day, because it really does support the brain, mate.
I agree. And build up from there. Yeah.
Yeah, just go slowly, you know. I had somebody contact me recently to say that her husband experienced a stroke and he's on the anti-epileptic medication because he's experiencing seizures, and as a result of that, he's experiencing now some other really terrible side effects. And you know, it's a really difficult situation because they don't know how to get rid of those side effects, but they don't want him to have seizures, so they're constantly trying to find some kind of balance for him. And I imagine that would be difficult on everybody. So she sounded like she was doing a little bit tough, this lady, and hopefully they'll come to some resolution. To say that she was also very early on in the process with her husband. It had only been a few months. So as things develop, the healing continues to occur over many years. For most people, things do settle down. They do chill out, and you get to some kind of a normal. You get to some kind of a balance. So there's
electric activity kind of thing.
Yeah, so there could be that thing for you as well. You're many years out now, so things are starting to settle and the brain's still healing itself, and it'll continue to heal, but it may have done a lot of that and you're noticing less and less. So 300 milligrams, is that a big dose or a small dose?
I think it's a decent dose, and now I take 500, so.
Yeah, okay. And did they up that because you continued to have seizures even on 300?
Yeah, there's a certain amount you have to have within your body. I think she might have called it therapeutic level. And so when I went for blood work to see where my therapeutic level was at, I can't remember the exact numbers, Bill, but I think it's like 40 to 80 is the range you need to be in. And I think on 300 milligrams, I was at like 32 or something like that.
Yeah.
So 500 milligrams brought me up probably into like 50 or 60, right in like the sweet spot of that zone.
So you'll be pleased to know, and everyone listening that experiences seizures, you'll be pleased to know that there is a gentleman who I'm going to interview in a few weeks' time who is from Spain, who is developing a product that you put in your ear and it predicts seizures before they happen.
Wow.
Yeah. So it measures the brain waves, and then once it's measured the brain waves over a good period of time and it knows what your normal is, it uses artificial intelligence to predict that as the brain waves start to change, a seizure is about to occur, and it will send a notification to your phone and tell you to go somewhere and sit down or ask for help.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is an interview.
And then if you aren't going to have a seizure, you're going to have a panic attack for sure.
Either way. And it's
that's cool.
It's a little implantable thing that just goes in the ear like I think he said it's like a hearing aid, but it doesn't cause you to hear better or anything. It just sits there and it just continuously measures these signals from the brain, and then it responds. And they're going through now trials and testing with the US FDA, and soon might mean a year or two or whatever, but soon they will have some kind of approval from the FDA to put it into proper testing where they can actually do a large study on humans and hopefully change the world with how epileptic seizures or brain seizures happen for people. So something to look out for. I'm so excited to bring that interview to people. I'll get that out soon.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. That sounds very promising.
Jason, on that note, I really want to thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story and telling everyone what you went through. I'm so glad to hear that everything is going okay and your little boy's running around and you got to see that out.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the rest of your lives to teach him all the things that you did wrong that he shouldn't.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. I'm really happy to be able to meet you finally and chat with you and share our stories. It's always great talking to other survivors.
Discover how to support your recovery after stroke. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com.